What's up? So we got Cobra Kai Season 4, Episode 7, Minefields. So this episode starts off with Anthony, this episode starts off with Anthony talking to his crush, Leah, so then we see Kenny, who is back in this episode, and Kenny decided, and then to be even more be a jerk to Kenny, he decides to steal Kenny's Cobra Kai towel. While Kenny only has a towel on, he decides to steal his Cobra Kai towel or Cobra Kai sweater, and then everyone sees him and half naked and takes pictures of him, which is like, and everyone laughs at him, which is kind of like, crap you guys are a bunch of jerkwads. So Miguel is hanging out at his mom's house when getting ready for the day when Johnny shows up, and Miguel goes gets water bottle. He sees Johnny's sock, and he's like, "Sensei, is this yours?" So they have to tell Miguel that they're, of course, dating, and he's like, yeah, it's okay. You guys can date, like it's your business, not his. So then we see Creed. So then we see the Cobra Kais, and they're wearing their new gi. We see Kenny punching and he says he really wants to get revenge on Anthony. So meanwhile, with Anthony decides to lie to Daniel, saying, Kenny has been bullying him, which it's way around with Anthony bullying Kenny, and Daniel believes this in full because he's one of those guys who just believes in something without questioning, because obviously he thinks that Cobra Kai is the bad guy, so obviously he's gonna think, his son's in the right, and he's like, oh yeah. So he's like, hey, you're going to be training at Miyagi-Do today. But he's like, so he's like, instead, he forgot to put the tarps on the cars. So he's like, Anthony, why don't you do it? But instead of doing it, Anthony calls a guy because he decides to call his way out of it by using Daniel's Apple Pay, and he basically yelled at Daniel, saying, and he's like, if Mr. Miyagi were here, and he's like, you're always talking about Mr. Miyagi, and I don't care about Mr. Miyagi, dude, which I do. My man Miyagi, I hope if Pat Maria were still alive, he'd probably be in the show. So yeah. And Daniel and he's like, I know there's like a bunch of memories of Mr. Miyagi, like him training Sam, but Daniel's just like, hey, go back to your video games, who cares? So next we see Anthony walking, decides to, go, and he's like, seeing Daniel's trophies and opening it up. And Daniel's like, and he's like, what's this? And he's like, something that we'll never have to use. None of you guys will have to use. So he's like, hey, don't worry about this Cobra Kai kid. I love. That's a reference. I know that's a referencing Kenny, and there's Drew, the Cobra Kai kid, has a channel called the Cobra Kai Kid, and and I watch it. It's really cool. Shout out to Drew from Cobra Kai Kid. So anyway. So next day, Leah decides to invite Kenny and Anthony together, and he's like, hey, look, he calls him LaJerko, and he's like, hey, don't call him that. And he's like, hey, whatever, LaJerko, and then Anthony, whatever he says, and Anthony chases after him, and they're about, and he's knocking out, and Kenny's using his Cobra Kai. He turns off the lights and knocks all of his guys down. But when Amanda and Daniel get there, the principal's like, "Hey, this is." He's like, "Hey, we're suspending Anthony and his friends." And he's like, "Hey, wait, what did Anthony do?" And he's like, "Anthony's been bullying Miss Kenny all this time." And yeah, bullying Kenny all this time, and he's the one that chased him down the hall. He's been they don't know how he got the milk in the lockers, and Anthony is finally exposed for the jerk why he is. And Kenny smiles, saying, "Gotcha. I like Kenny in this moment, cause he kind of deserves this. Like, this dude is being a jerk." I hope Anthony gets it. Obviously, Anthony will get in trouble for this. He lied to Daniel this entire episode. So at training we meet. So now let's talk about the Eagle Fang. So at training we meet Devin Lee, the new member of Eagle Fang Karate, and she basically kicks everyone in the groin. As one of her training, she's just kicking everyone in the groin, and they ice pack their groins. So Johnny just turns into dad mode. He's like, "Hey Miguel, your mom wants to dinner. Don't be late." So Miguel comes home after hanging out with Sam, and Daniel's like, "Hey, and Johnny's just like, he's hanging out with Grover," but he's like, "Hold on, guys. It would have been cool if you guys were together, but now it's weird. It's weird at the dojo, and now it's weird at home. Like, and he's over it." So he decides to get Miguel at school in the middle of his classes and takes him to a place where he basically mentioned about how his mom, how he never got his dad left, his mom married Sid, and he never thought she dated a lot of guys, and then she married Sid. I'm guessing that Sid died off screen, or they just don't want to mention him, because remember, the actor playing him, Ad Eisner, sadly passed away. So, obviously, Sid is never going to be mentioned again, or they're going to mention that he probably died off screen. Who knows with this show. So he's like, "Hey, doing the tornado kick," and then Sam just randomly shows up out of nowhere and saying how she told her dad she wanted to do both his style and Johnny's style, and she does. After the terribleness that was last episode and the Aisha cameo that was cool, but Sam was nothing, this episode just feels like okay. So with Cobra Kai, Terry and Johnny decide to Terry and Chris decide to say, "Hey, we'll have their students fight each other, and whoever wins gets beer." So first it's Tori against new Cobra Kai member Piper. Remember her? I always say that because so Tori obviously beats Piper, and Piper's like, "Hey, let's do that next time." And she's like, So now it's Kenny and Robbie, and obviously Robbie's weakness is that he doesn't want to hurt Kenny, but Kenny uses that against him, and he first injures Robbie, but in the second round, Kenny uses that, and Robbie hurts Kenny, but Robbie's like, "Are you okay?" But Kenny he does a sweep kick and defeats Robbie, and Terry wins. 2v2, and Terry wins, so Terry gets the brewskis, and gets the beer. And then we get a scene of Terry and Kreese talking, and Terry and Kreese is like, "Hey, remember back in Vietnam how we were how they were held at gunpoint by the Vietnamese, and Terry was just there crying in like a puddle of pee, but Terry actually did something." Kreese actually did something. He stood up and he actually defeated the bat. He actually, if it wasn't for him, he'd still be in that cage. And now he's in a new cage that Terry created himself. So that kind of wraps up this episode. I'm glad that Anthony is the worst this season. Like, he is such a jerkwad that makes me hate the character. That makes me dislike the character. And I'm glad that he gets called out on it by the principal. The people at the show do nothing, but now the cops don't arrest anybody. They're not putting Tori's brother in foster care because she's taking care of she has a sick mom and a brother how's she doing the money for both. And Tori's now allowed at school now because of Sam. You know, Sam still dislikes Tori, but yeah. So anyway, so Miguel said, so it's kind of weird for Miguel seeing his mom and his sensei date each other, but he's okay with it, you know? Like, he always wanted his mom to find someone, and she found that person in Johnny. Like, she wanted his mom to, like, don't know where his grandma is in this entire scene, and she's not even at the dinner table, so where did she go? Usually in season 1, we'd see her at the dinner table with Miguel and Carmen, but she was nowhere to be seen in that dinner scene, so where did Miguel's grandma go? Yeah. So anyway, I guess I'll see you next time for the episode of Cobra Kai. I also like my new college shirt. Yeah, but anyway, I'll see you next time for another episode of Cobra Kai. Remember, have an eagle-tastic day. And strike first, strike hard, and eagle first, eagle hard, and always eagle.